Welcome back to the channel. My name is Crawford. This is Virginia is for Lowriders. Today we are getting back on the Mazda project. This week has been very hectic for me. I had some well issues, we'll just say that, which turned into 2 days worth of work and about $400 out of my pocket, surprisingly, because it's been like in the teens, and it was like 10 degrees the night that everything happened. So a little bit delayed this week on getting back to work, but we're back out here. It's like 6 something on Saturday night, so it's late. So I gotta try and squeeze a whole video's worth of activities in tonight and tomorrow night. So that's the game plan. We're gonna bounce around. We're gonna do our normal thing. We're gonna let ADD take the wheel, and whatever happens, happens. I don't really have a game plan because my plans have been kind of screwed up the last couple days. I did come out here Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I think. And I was out here last night cleaning, but I got the wiring pretty much wrapped up as far as under the engine bay, or in the engine bay goes. I got the harness stripped back to where I'm ready to pass the harness from the engine into the cab, and I got everything else pretty much wrapped up. I got a couple more things I got to extend and then move on to the actual wiring on the engine. But I don't feel like doing wiring this week. So we're going to get into some fabrication stuff. Rewind like a couple months ago, I built full exhaust, stainless steel from the header back. I made a header completely from scratch. I bought a flat piece of stainless steel. I made the flange. I bought all the tubing, everything. But I was never really happy with it. It turned out cool, but the collector was weird because it was my first time experiencing doing stuff with tubing. I don't really, unless it's like suspension stuff and making little cross members and triangulating and 3 links and 4 links and stuff like that. As far as stainless steel tubing goes, I've never attempted to make a header from scratch. I've done tons and tons and tons of exhaust from kits that you just chop up into little pieces and make work. I didn't really grasp the aspect of making a collector from scratch because you have to with this, because it needs to be 2-inch and nobody sells a 2-inch and blah, 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 blah. I needed to buy 45s and I didn't. I bought 90s. I bought a whole bunch of 90s. And it cost me a lot of money to make the header that I was really into, and I really liked the header from here to here, and then I talked myself out of it and I cut it in half. And fast forward to Monday, they finally started selling the headers again on eBay. So I bought one. That is going to get put aside. It'll probably end up on my buddy James's truck, or if I can find the 2-inch, or actually 1.5-inch tubes in 45s, and it doesn't cost me $100 to fix that header, I will finish it correctly and be happy with it. But until then, we got an eBay stainless steel header that's going to work perfectly fine, and it makes it, the entire exhaust is stainless steel again. So I need to weld a V-band on the end of that, and I need to connect that to the stainless steel exhaust that we put together for the rest of it all the way back to the tailpipe. I also have a MagnaFlow muffler because the muffler that I initially bought for this sounds like a tractor. But I don't know where we're going to go with this weekend. I got a lot of random stuff I want to do. A lot of random stuff I need to do. I need to get the brake line made for the rear, and I need to get that mounted. I'm not so worried about the fuel line, but if the brake line is made, then I can paint the rear. I can paint the rear frame rails, I can paint the rear end. That's pretty much all I'm waiting for, is brake lines and the mounts for the exhaust, because I never finished the header to finish the exhaust, and so on and so on. So I need to finish the exhaust and then make mounts for the exhaust. That way the frame doesn't need anything else welded to it, so I don't have to grind new paint back off, and so on and so on and so on. So we're gonna let ADD do its thing. I'll show you what I did the last couple days. I didn't record it, but I'll explain what I did, and we'll just get into doing something. Not sure. If you've never been here before, go back and check out all of the other videos. There's like 32 of them or 33 of them. If you counted the ones I wasn't numbering, then there's probably, I don't know, close to 40 of them. There's a whole lot of footage of what exactly we did on every step of this project. So go check out all those. Do all the normal YouTube-y stuff, subscribing and comments and thumbs ups and ringing the little bell and everything, and we're gonna ramble. We're gonna try and get something done. So if you've never been here before, and if you have been before, thanks for watching, and let's try to do something. I don't know what yet. All right, basic rundown. Everything on the driver's side is wired. All of that is ready to go. The only things that I need to do is send the wiring from that fender over to the brake stuff and to the coil. And that part will be completely tied up or buttoned up. I had a couple people ask why I didn't just split the harness and go from underneath the dash to behind the engine. After stripping all of the loom off the entire wiring harness, I just figured it was easier to extend the literal 7 wires between this plug and this plug, and that's it. If I went the other route and split the harness and came in behind the engine, there's a lot going on in the foot pedal assembly on the back of this, and there's a lot of things going on in the dashboard. The only way that I felt confident that it wouldn't be in a weird chafing spot or just zip tied out of the way to where it could potentially be a hazard of something chafing or rubbing or being a problem later on, it just seemed way simpler to extend 7 wires and be done with it, because they all stopped about here. So I'm only adding a couple feet just to get them back into the cab. It's not like I extended every bit of the harness coming out of the cab all the way back around. So all of this will get de-loomed, loomed together, ran into there, and done. I came in here, stripped back this harness. This is an extremely simple setup. These are the same 7 wires that'll be plugged into these guys. Again, it's really simple stuff. It's just alternator signal for the dashboard, transmission signals, oil pressure sensor, coolant sensor, and that's it. Nothing else in here. I made the bracket for this, like I talked about last week. So this guy will get mounted to this. My idea is this will get welded into here. So when it's assembled, this will just be right in here. I have some of this plastic material that I plan on making inner fenders with to make it kind of like a factory inner fender. And it'll cover the entire wheel well. And if I ever need to access these fuses, turn the wheel, there should be plenty of clearance. If I need to, I can pull this fender down just like a factory fender with push clips and access the 3 hole fuses that are inside of this thing. So got all this figured out, just need to wrap it up, but I'll do it off camera because it's extremely boring. Like I had said in the beginning, I got the new header in, so I need to weld a V-band onto there. The header looks good. The speedometer cable, I'm going to have to get creative with this and where to mount it, because it's either touching the steering or touching the exhaust, so I need to come up with something for that. Need to finish up the mounting of that. Very simple stuff, but I'm not going to bore y'all with that because I bored y'all with wiring last week. Last week we also knocked out the mounting of the rear shocks. So I need to tie those together. I want to put some gussets in some places that I think are going to have some stress. And then maybe we can start mounting the air tank and all of that stuff back to the frame. If I get the placement of that stuff in and all of this stuff painted, then I can finalize where the exhaust tailpipe's going to be, minus the actual portion that comes out of the bed, because I don't know that yet because I don't have the bed on. So I don't know. Like I said, ADD, I'm rambling. Let's just start doing something. I don't know what that's going to be, but we're going to start knocking some stuff out. I've decided it. We're going to go after small victories today. We are going to try to shoot for what can we finish today. Not chip away at, but finish. So the first thing I'm thinking is brackets or gussets or whatever you want to call them between these guys. I want to do something a little bit nicer than just a flat plate. So maybe something with a curve in between here. Something to give it some side to side, not just straight tabs, just like we did on the rear of pretty much everything. Everything else has a tab like that. So tabs on here, tabs between here, tabs on the back of the shock tabs. We're going to go through and tab it up. So start making these, maybe some little baby gussets in other places. That's first, then wherever we get from there. All right, we got some little tab action here on both sides. I have these little dome cap things you saw me cut down, weld on there. I'm going to clean that up with the grinder. That way it's all smooth. I made probably the smallest tabs I ever made in my life. That little area there just to brace it up because I don't want it to slowly pull that away. So now I'm thinking I found this random piece of, I don't know, 1/8 inch or so piece of metal with some random holes in it already. I'm going to take it and turn it into brake tabs. I thought I was going to be able to run it like the factory line does, and I also thought that I was going to be able to run it like a buddy of mine truck has it, but with the way I raised the gas tank, I went out and looked at the parts truck, and it comes off the side of this, but the tank is also pushed over a little bit, so I moved the tank this way, I raised the tank way up, so that's not going to work. I'm thinking, because the line's going to come from here, just real simple, line up the frame rail, line around here to a small tab hanging off this guy, and then a mirror tab of the same thing hanging off the rear. So just need to weld one on here, weld one on there. Technically, the rear end can come out of the truck because after all this is done, well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. I needed to do exhaust first so I can check for clearances of the rear end. So we'll just knock out those tabs real quick. Maybe I'll get the header off, try to weld the V-band onto the end of the header, and go from there. We're just trying to chip away at easy stuff. Straightforward, don't have to think about it stuff. The V-band is definitely one of those things. I also just actually purchased it like a week or two ago, a TIG button for my TIG welder rather than the foot pedal, so it's easier when I'm laying on my back underneath this thing or doing roll cages or doing whatever I'm doing, so I don't have to have my foot pedal pressed with my knee or the end of my heel or something, or one of my friends over here, and I'm just going to shut up and we're going to make some tabs. All right, it's about factory location-ish. The only thing I did was, instead of putting it straight on top of the axle, I tipped it to the side because there's going to be a bump stop on the bottom of the frame, and when the axle comes all the way up, there's no room for the brake line, so the brake line's going to have to come down the side and then cross over and up. So now I need to find something else to make. Something simple. I think we'll do the header real quick. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. I don't know what it is. I've bought 2 different brands of V-band clamps offline. I've never had problems with any kind of cheap, no-name V-bands in my life. But for whatever reason, these 2-inch ones, they're pretty much garbage. Every one of the bolts, unless you tighten it really, really gently with a wrench, it's going to remove the threads when you untighten it or loosen it up. So this is the exhaust that we made a couple months ago. I now managed to get it covered in overspray that I need to get off before starting it so it doesn't get baked into it. So I haven't welded the flange on the end of the header yet. Someone told me I needed to get down here and assemble the exhaust and then try and figure out what to do. And I should have known, like right off the bat, that it wasn't going to be anywhere close to the header that I made. And it turns out that it's like 3 inches closer to the engine than what I made, which is kind of wild. So, put the exhaust back in place and routed it into the place it's going to be. That muffler is going to get changed. I have a MagnaFlow over there that I really, really hope fits in that area, and I don't have to beat the crap out of it to make it work. But there's a pretty good chance I'm going to have to beat the crap out of the top of the muffler to get it to fit in that area, which is not the best thing for a muffler that's brand new. But I'll show you my dilemma that I have going on here. So, exhaust and header are in totally different spots. My exhaust is significantly lower than the header and significantly in a different spot altogether. So I think what I'm going to have to do in order to get to my header, I've created this jog right here. I believe I'm going to cut it here and make another one of these that extends it all the way up to there. So I'm still going to go forward with welding that V-band flange on there, this guy, which would be just on the end. Weld that up, cut this, bring everything back over here, try to reassemble it with it in multiple pieces with this attached to that, and then fill in the gap. And then after filling in the gap, I have to massage one of these cross members for my exhaust to fit, because everything's going to be moved a little bit from now. And then I'll try to make mounts. And we'll try and get the exhaust knocked out between tonight and tomorrow, and then move on to something else, hopefully. Well, it's the moment of truth. I just spent the last 45 minutes or so getting the trigger hooked up and inside of my protective case, and setting up the purge setup and getting everything ready. So now we're going to see if my $100 and some odd buttons. So see if we can hopefully not make a mess out of this. I was doing all right with the foot pedal thing, which I haven't done a whole lot of stainless steel. Again, this is like my probably 7th time doing stainless steel, so we'll see what it turns out. So, if you've never been here before and you haven't seen my other videos, I don't know if you've ever looked into back purge setups, but I made a back purge setup out of they're extremely cheap. Sometimes you can find these things, like 5 of them for 20 bucks on Amazon. The actual back purge kits have dropped in price. I think it's because they're realizing the fact that you could make them now cheap. But brass fittings off Amazon, some random tubing, a cheap regulator off Amazon, and these are usually used for powder coating stuff. You can make a back purge setup for under $100 with the gauge, especially if you only need one size. If you need more than one size, it really doesn't cost that much more to expand on it. So if you ever need some links, let me know. I'll find some random links. Now we gotta get this bolted back to the truck and hopefully try to align all of the stars and make this work. GoPro stop. Well, it is now 1 o'clock in the morning, and after creeping up on the correct cut, because again, little tiny tubing and not as forgiveful as something like this. Because something like this, if there's the tiniest bit of a gap, it's okay. It doesn't really matter. With the stainless steel stuff, there can't be a gap or it's going to turn out like crap. So cuts, all of these random cuts, there's probably 20 of them, and grinding and grinding and grinding. I finally got it to the point where I'm ready to tack weld it together so I can pull it all out of here. Got my TIG clamp on there. Got this side set into place. I got everything at the height that it needs to be to where the frame rail is lower than the exhaust. This, I know it's going to have to be notched. I've said that numerous times before. Plenty of clearance in here, so just that guy. So now I'm going to get these 2 pieces tack welded together, and that way I can pull all of this off as an assembly and weld it outside of the truck. So far, the TIG button is another one of those tools that I should have bought a really long time ago. I don't know what I was thinking not owning one of those. So now I'm going to pull it off so that way I can purge it and try to prevent some sugaring. There's a little bit of nasty sizzling going on in here because I started the truck up and the truck was flooded and it spit out a bunch of nastiness into the exhaust the first time I started it back up after it's sitting for a couple months. So I tried to do a little pass just to, because I can't really get in here and tack weld a bunch with my torch set up the way that it is right now with a long tungsten. So it should be all right the way that this is, as long as I don't bump it around and end up moving it in any which way. So I'll pull this off and get it welded up. All right, it is Sunday, kind of late again, but we're out here. I came out here, I've been out here for about probably an hour or so. I got the exhaust set back in place again, bolted to the header again. Took my straight edge, laid it up here. There's no clearance issues. I still need to massage that at some point, which I'm not super concerned about. A good place. There's no possible way for it to rub or hit anything. This is the new MagnaFlow muffler that I picked up. Hopefully it doesn't sound like a tractor like this thing does. They're both straight through. I was just hoping that the $30 muffler sounded good enough to be okay for being completely made out of stainless steel, but it sounds terrible. So MagnaFlow it is, because that's what was on it before and it actually sounded pretty good. The other one, the input and outputs aren't in the same spot, so it's not going to work for this application. But this is in its final resting place. I ordered like 3 days ago V-bands to go on here so that I didn't have to cut these off and try to save them. So those should be here hopefully within an hour or 2 or 3 so I can get the muffler welded on. But in the meantime, so a couple months ago I made a bunch of these tabs out of a random piece of stainless steel that I had laying around. And I picked up some of these hot rod exhaust mounts that are supposed to be high temperature, but they keep the exhaust relatively rigid. Most of the time when you see these things, they're on like Model A's and hot rods and whatnot. I've always wanted to try them. I found them with just the bushings and made the tabs, which cut the price down significantly. Because when you buy them individually, just this thing's like $15. You can buy a 5 or 6 pack of the bushings and make your own tabs for like 20 bucks, I think. So this will get welded onto here, somewhere in this area, something like that. Then I'll make another tab that comes down from that. I'll get this exhaust pipe mounted. It'll be 100% where it's going to live and get that done, because I've been wanting to do that but couldn't work up the, I don't know, just like I said, ADD stuff. But I also bought stainless steel rods. These are like 3/8 rods. Again, bought them off Amazon. Found like a 5 or 4 pack of them. There is an existing old style, just with the solid rubber bushing thing with 2 holes in it, mount left underneath the truck. I'm going to attempt to weld one of these and curl it up to get to that mount to just give me a little bit more strength, I guess, or vibration, anti-vibration stuff. So I'm going to get that tab welded on. Hopefully the V-bands show up soon. Once the exhaust is completely buttoned up today, I can actually start painting the frame, because nothing else needs to be ran down the frame. Everything else that would be ran down the frame will either get, I don't know, depends on how I'm feeling. It might get self-tapped with the little rubber isolator clamps. It might get drilled and tapped. Depends on the area of it. Depends on how I'm feeling. So yeah, we're gonna continue to do what we've been doing and letting ADD do its thing. We've been actually staying on track pretty good. So I'm gonna keep that ball rolling and hopefully don't fall off of track. And yeah, we're gonna do stuff. Checked my shipping thing and it doesn't seem like the V-bands are gonna be here anytime soon. It says expected by 10 p.m. and doesn't show shipped. So I'm gonna cut this side off. I still have a male for the other side that's unused, so I'll cut this off somewhere around here, and this can still get used on something else. Maybe it'll end up on my skid steer or something to quiet it down some. Going to cut that and slip it on the MagnaFlow and see if we can get something going on there. Too terrible. Well, I got the muffler in place. In order to make this work, I rotate it a little bit, I push it over a little bit, and in doing so, it messed up the connecting of the muffler to the tailpipe. So this angle is all sorts of funky, like not even close. But since we did cut the front end up and I had some stuff that we removed from the front end, I have this weird little jog thing that I made initially to do the same thing that I made last night. So I'm thinking, depending on how I position this and depending on how I cut the muffler, it looks like I'll be able to make this work to connect these two pieces. So I'm going to unbolt this back from the V-band, cut this off, which is kind of sketchy because MagnaFlow just makes one muffler body from what looks like 3" up to, from 3" down to 2", and they just keep squeezing the crap out of the end of the pipe to make it fit whatever application they're selling it for. So after I cut that, it's going to get bigger. So I'll have to squeeze it down again. You saw me when I welded that end on. I ended up having to do the same thing because it wasn't quite 2 inches. It was like, it's probably like 2 1/4. So I have to get a little creative with this side. I think most likely we're going to cut it off the muffler, cut the muffler off completely, weld the V-band to this, position everything back in here, and tack weld it in place, and then go from there. That's the plan. clearance, 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 clearance. Got a piece of metal keeping my gap in there. And my idea of recycling that piece worked out pretty good. So there's like maybe an 1/8 inch of material sticking in here, so there's not going to be like any kind of turbulence or anything. So I'm going to get this tacked and partially welded on here, put it on the bench, back purge, and weld that guy together real quick. I definitely should have bought that TIG button years ago. The ease of that and trying, I don't know. I don't TIG weld a whole lot. I'm a mechanic, not a welder. The ease of that versus me doing that with my knee, night and day. I don't know if it would be the same if I didn't have a pulse setting on my TIG welder, but it's crazy. So much easier. I wouldn't say exhaust is like a huge thing, huge step in progress when it comes to builds. But when you have a body drop truck that has a tailpipe that goes around the rear end and all the way back to a factory location, to me, it's pretty substantial, especially on a mini truck where there's pretty much no room for any of this stuff. So it's pretty, I don't show excitement, but it's pretty exciting to actually have this portion of the build done. What I can actually say is done. I'm going to do the normal old school style bushing thing that I talked about underneath the cab, but I can't find the bushings. It's probably in the same box as the soft brake line for the rear end that I ordered last night because I can't find it either. So once I find that bushing or talk myself into spending another $5 and ordering another one, I'll do that little mount in the middle, even though it's not necessary because the exhaust is fully suspended and I feel like it's, I don't know, good enough, I guess. But the exhaust is completely installed. It's in its own hangers. There is plenty of room between every bit of it. Nothing's even kind of close. I mean, it's close for sure, but not like questionable. There's plenty of room for the muffler that I was afraid wasn't going to fit, and multiple mounts. I will be making a mount that probably comes from here or probably over here out of the way of this body mount, but I'll do that once the bed's on and I know where the tailpipe's going to lay. I don't want to mess with that just yet, but it's pretty exciting. Spray a little bit of primer here. I need to get the bottom of this cleaned up. This was terrible. The factory location for the leaf spring mounts on the rear of the frame of these things, it's like 3 layers of crap, and then the guy that built the truck in the 90s had, I don't know, another 2 layers of stuff holding the reverse 4-link there. So I need to cut all of the rest of that off. I already did the passenger side for the most part. It's pretty clean. This side's still pretty rough, but maybe I'll try to knock that out real quick. We'll spray some black at least on these back frame rails, and if I do that, I can, like I said earlier, I can hopefully get the tank maybe mounted up and we can go from there. Got to make a little bit more progress for the weekend. I got another couple hours that I can spare to be out here, so I think that's what we're going to do. I really don't want to lay on the ground and grind, but it's one of those things that needs to be done, and I keep procrastinating on it. I've been procrastinating on the exhaust for months now, so huge win. Well, the ADD got the best of me, and instead of just focusing on grinding that frame rail, like I said I was going to, and bolting everything up, I just, I straight away and just took the whole truck apart, if you didn't notice. But I got a lot of stuff prepped. Started working on these little caps. Get that finished up and taking off the surface rust because the humidity around here is ridiculous sometimes, and you can weld something on, come out the very next morning, and there'd be rust on it. The humidity's crazy sometimes. But this whole week I'm just gonna grind, and hopefully the weatherman's right and it's in the 60s on Friday, which seems crazy because it was 10 degrees 2 days ago. But fingers crossed, it's going to be warm. If it's warm, we can try to get the rear end prepped and painted. This is all going to get truck bed coated just like the front, which I'm just going to use the rattle can stuff. I've had good results out of it. I've had good durability results out of it. The rear end and all of the 3-link bars and the fuel tank are going to get painted with either I'm going to use a chassis black or a tractor black. I've actually had better luck out of the tractor black. I've painted my skid steer, my frame table, and some outside chairs and a bunch of other random stuff with the tractor paint, and I've had really good luck out of it. So that might be what we end up using, and it's priced better, surprisingly. So yeah, I think we're good for this weekend. Actual progress was made. I apologize for all the rambling I did in the beginning of the video, but I don't know how else to put it out there unless I try to talk really, really fast, which doesn't usually work. So I'm going to get this all cleaned up. I'm going to run inside, try and get this edited and to you guys. And again, if you've never been here before and this is all new to you, don't forget to subscribe and check out the other tons of videos. I don't ramble the entire time on the other ones. Some of them I get a little carried away on. I try to keep it to a minimum. It doesn't always work, but I'll see y'all next week. Again, we're here every Sunday. I post every single Sunday. I haven't missed a Sunday in like 4, 5, 6 months. So, yeah, thanks for watching.